Okay, so now I'd like to go through and talk about how to grade this particular question. Now, again, this is one person's interpretation of how this might look on the AP test, and so we might quibble about what could be more important or less important, and I might disagree. And the main idea is that you're communicating well the things that you have bouncing around in your head in such a way that they feel obligated to give you credit. So looking at letter A, they gave 2 points for this question, 1 point for getting an answer earned, and 1 point with correct work shown. And you could get credit for good work if you botched something up in the formula, but you showed it all right, and you just say missubtracted or looked it up wrong on the calculator, or perhaps you got all this right, and for some reason you put the flip side of this and put 84%, you'd get one of the 2 points. So keep track of how many points you get, or write it on your each part as we go. Letter B, they assigned 6 points for this. I don't know if one particular part will be weighted that heavily or not. It's unclear, but there's 6 points. 1 point for the shape, 1 point for giving a good reason why you picked that shape, 1 point for the center, 1 point for the spread. And note on those, it didn't matter if you talked about mean or median or standard deviation or IQR. 1 point for talking about no outliers, 1 point for good justification on why there were no outliers. Sometimes I have students who calculate whether or not there should be outliers, but then they don't actually say there are no outliers. Go ahead and seal the deal. That's 6 points. Letter C was worth 2 points, 1 point for the good hypotheses and 1 point for defining your parameter. So if you flipped these symbols, you didn't get that point. If you botched it up some other way, but you could still get 1 good point for defining it properly. The next part's worth 2 points, 1 point for interpreting a p-value, and your interpretation must include a statement that if HO is true, assuming HO is true, and then 1 point for giving a correct conclusion about rejecting HO in favor of HA, and they required context on that. I might have given that 3 points, and 1 point's the correct conclusion and 1 point's for giving context, but this is how they chose to do it. Letter E, 1 point for recognizing that you failed to reject when you should have. In other words, correctly understanding what a type 2 error was, and 1 point for context. Context is huge. I hope you're getting that message. 2 points on this question about slope, 1 for the correct slope, and 1 for interpreting that slope correctly. So 1 for the correct slope, 1 for interpreting it correctly, and you must mention that it increased because we've got a positive number, so up or increases or grows or something like that, and your interpretation has to be right. These bullets were wrong on some forms, so I may have the bullet letter wrong as I'm saying this, and I apologize. It's different than what you've got. The next part, 2 points. 1 point for saying strong, positive, and linear. 1 point for giving good reasoning. And you must give a reason for at least 2 of the 3 components to earn the point. So I probably, honestly, wouldn't have done real well on that part. Because sometimes I think, well, it's obvious that it's strong and positive and linear. What do you want me to write? Well, the answer is some of this stuff right here is what they want you to write. So now add up the number of points that you got on this question and get the question that we did previously, question number 1, and find the number of points that you got on that. Pause the video if you need to go find that one so you can get a total number of points on this mock exam. Okay, so this sheet, let me explain what goes on with this. And again, this is not definitive or anything like that, but maybe it's giving you an idea. So the most points you could have obtained was a 40, and the fewest, of course, is a 0. This little chart gives you a prediction of what you might get on the AP test if you scored something comparable to that. Here's a couple of things I want you to get. Notice that a score of less than half still gives you a 3. Okay, that's the way the test is going to be. A score of less than half, just under half, is a good score. The other thing that I hope you took away from this is you probably, even with the understanding that you have right now, could have earned a few more points than you got if you had communicated a little betterly. Listen to me. If you had communicated a little better, or had not made that careless, boneheaded mistake that you made. So we want to take those lessons into the actual test, to slow down, to read the question, to be careful about what we write, and to try to explain it utilizing our time. The person who wrote this test did a great job of going through and showing how each unit, the course is broken into 7 units, and how they covered each of those here. So that's kind of what goes on with this. These don't correlate perfectly to chapters that we did in our course, but you can see they've covered the whole course at some point in these 2 questions and all the parts they had on there. One thing I think is that there might not be quite as many parts, because that could take you some time, but you just need to use your time wisely and pace yourself so that you get through the whole exam.